Welcome to the Positive Spiritual Living Podcast, brought to you by Unity on the Bay. This is your positive path for spiritual living.
One of my favorite stories involves a couple of elderly women. They knew they were probably on the last leg of their driving years, about ready to surrender their licenses, and they decided to take one jaunt down the road to the other side of town. So Blanche and Mona are in the car. Blanche is driving, Mona's in the passenger seat, and they come to an intersection, and Mona would have sworn that the light was red, but Blanche drove right through it. And she said, well, I must have been mistaken. Surely she would not have just driven right through a red light. So they come to another intersection a little further down the stretch, and sure enough, it happens again. Red light, Blanche just cruises right through it, and this time Mona's going, I think we got a problem here. I'm sure that light was red. And so they come to the third intersection. Once again, Blanche just goes right through the red light. And this time, Mona, she just has to speak up, and she says, Blanche, sweetheart, she says, do you realize you've just run through 3 red lights at 3 separate intersections? You could have killed us. Whereupon Blanche responds by saying, oh, hell, am I driving? I love that story. So I have a question for you this morning, one I've asked when I've shared that story previously. Who's driving your car? Who's driving your vehicle? I believe with all my heart that right now in the world, certainly in this country, a call is being sounded. Like a loud, unmistakable call is being sounded. And my question of all of us is, who will answer? Who will answer this call? Course in Miracles says that we have 2 voices and 2 choices within us. 2 voices, 2 choices. One voice is the voice of fear, or the voice of the conditioned, or what Don Miguel Ruiz calls the domesticated human being. In other words, that part of us that's been conditioned since the moment we arrived on the planet to show up in a certain way, to express in a certain way. That's the conditioned self. It's always fearful. It's always looking around the corner because it doesn't trust and it has no sense of security other than that security which it is seeking to falsely discover somewhere outside of itself. And then the other voice, the other choice, is that of love. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity Movement, once referred to this voice of love as the voice of pure being. Pure being. Now, you could call it God, you could call it the Christ, you could call it the divine identity, but I like that more and more of late. I've been thinking pure being, pure essence. Those are the 2 voices. And that pure essence is quite different from the voice of fear because it's not conditioned, it's unconditioned, it's pure in its form and in its format of expression. As such, it's not looking to be validated by anybody or anything outside of itself. It is validation. It's the pure essence, the pure being that is the reality of the nature of who we are. So I ask again, who's driving this car? Who's driving your car? Who's driving your life? Is it the voice of fear that is responding to this call, that is driving your life, that is escorting you through the adventures of your day-to-day experience? Or is it the voice of love? Which one is driving your vehicle? Now, let's do something together because it's been quite a week, huh? Boy. So let's just take a moment right now to breathe. This is such a basic function, oftentimes goes completely without our awareness. We're unconscious of most of the breaths that we're taking. But let's take a really conscious breath. Let's just breathe it in and breathe it out. And let's honor together that we have been through an historically traumatic event this week. Historically traumatic. Let's honor whatever it is that has occurred inside of us in response or reaction to this historic event. And while we can't now, and we haven't for some time been able to hold each other's hands, which I never ever thought I would speak those words from this platform. We can't hold each other's hands, but we can't right now. We can, more importantly, hold each other's hearts. And we can hold our own heart right now because we've walked through a holy host of unprecedented activities in the past year. And I know a lot of us must be wondering, how much longer can this go on? Or how much longer can I go on witnessing some of this? There's a song that I think most of you are pretty familiar with. It has a lyric that runs like this. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Beautiful song written in the 1950s by Cy Miller and Jill Jackson. And you'll notice it doesn't say, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with my enemy. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with my government. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. 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 There's just no way, my friends, that we're going to get our arms around the experience of peace on earth until we have peace within us. I've said so many times to you, and therefore I'm just saying it to myself, that my external world is a reflection of an internal dynamic. I want to take responsibility for what I'm experiencing out here. And you say, well, you don't have to solely take responsibility. I don't care if it's at this point, collective or individual. I want to do my part to move myself out of the sense of divisiveness, antagonism, and division that, yeah, it's going on out here, but it's also going on in me. I have to own that, my friends. I watch people out here behaving in certain ways, and I don't want to say this, but it's true nonetheless. I have behaved that way, and I may behave that way tomorrow. I have been arrogant. I have been presumptuous. I have been defensive. I have had attack thoughts in my mind, and I'm expecting this all to change while this stuff is going on between my own two ears. It cannot happen, individually or collectively, because this is a projection. It's a projection that we're all putting out there. We must heal ourselves if we expect this world to heal. The healing isn't going to happen out here until I take responsibility for the healing inside of myself, until I am able to get through even 24 hours without an antagonistic defensive thought going on inside of me. And to date, with my many years on this planet, that has not happened. I would love to say, most of my days are just delightful, and I never think divisive thoughts, and I never judge other individuals. I'm not spiritually superior. I've just been doing this work for a very long time. That's a joke. I'm doing good if I can get through 5 minutes without an antagonistic thought, especially of late. We are each part of this collective consciousness that is responsible for this world, this thing that we call world, daily existence. And it's really important, I believe, now perhaps more than ever, the call from the universe is, what am I contributing? What am I pouring in moment by moment into this collective? What's my contribution? And again, I'd like to say it's just stellar. It's pristine. I've done the work. I'm a contributor to world peace, but I'm not. I think I'm doing better, but I have to recognize those pockets in my experience and in my expression where I'm just not doing that. And I think it's important for me to admit that to myself and to other individuals. I believe that all peril, would you agree we're in a peril? All peril can serve, if we so choose, as a vehicle to inquire of ourselves what we are contributing. So here's a peril. I'm not going to go, look what he or she is or is not contributing, but what am I pouring into this vessel? And I can't do that, my friends, until I completely honor and accept and own my current experience. A term that's taken on increased popularity of late is the term spiritual bypassing. And quite frankly, I have a mixed response to that, because sometimes I think people are saying, don't jump to a spiritual conclusion or solution as a means of bypassing this thing we call reality. But I do believe sometimes we can spiritually bypass by not fully accepting and honoring and even celebrating what it is that we are experiencing right now in this moment, and certainly to own our experience. So in this past week, has anybody experienced a sense of anger? Has anybody experienced a sense of grief? Has anybody experienced a sense of worry or immense doubt? And I'm only asking you because I have. And between what occurred this week and what's been occurring over the past year that has brought those kinds of emotions to surface, the grief, the anger, the worry, the doubt, I wonder sometimes how much longer we can really go on with this. Now, one thing I do believe, at least intellectually, and I'm working to do my best to integrate this spiritually and to live from this place, is that these responses, grief, anger, worry, doubt, they are born from the conditioned self that I was talking about earlier, the domesticated self. They're not natural when I'm plugged into my sense of pure being. So I know I'm coming from a place of fear when I'm grieving, when I'm worrying, when I'm angry. I know those are fearful states, but remember, we don't want to bypass them. We want to own them, because you can't transform something until you recognize that you have invested in it and that you are experiencing it. So what we can do is seek to acknowledge these emotions within us, to express them as healthfully as we possibly can, to soothe and support ourselves. And friends, we just got to do this right now. We've got to soothe ourselves. You know, it's not going to come from anybody or anything outside of us. We have to kind of hold ourselves in a gentle embrace and say, hey, man, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. How do I know that? Because I've been through transformative processes many times in my life. And even in those most foreboding experiences, I have always emerged. And I've not just emerged, I've actually come out stronger. So can I soothe myself? Can you soothe yourself? Can you hold yourself even when you're really, really angry? Even when you're in a state of rage? Even when you're in a state of immense doubt and worry and fear, can you hold yourself and say, it's going to be all right. We're going to be all right here. So important. And then just gradually start to reclaim your power. Realize, this is what I'm experiencing. I'm willing to own it, but I'm also willing to recognize that through ownership, I can transform it. I can transform it. And then we employ one of our basic practices in unity, which is the art of prayer, the art of meditation, to return ourselves to a more complete state of pure being. Because we realize 2 voices, 2 choices: love, fear, conditioned self, pure being. It is my objective, it is my desire, it is my goal, my aim to live my life more from that state of pure being. You can then kind of work up a little bit. You might not go from anger to joy overnight, but you can work yourself into a space where instead of rage, you're experiencing perhaps discouragement, perhaps blame, perhaps pessimism. But these are lesser forms of the conditioned self. They are lesser forms of the fearful self. And what you can begin to do is hold to spiritual principle. Thank God. Thank God. You know, we are very fortunate in this room right now because we are part of a very small percentage of individuals that have received, by the grace of God, an awareness of these essential spiritual universal teachings. We can employ them. We're so fortunate, my friends. It's a great blessing that we have these tools that we can utilize. Hold to spiritual principles and remember that life is in a continual process of evolving upward. That's going to happen. As sure as you went through puberty, you're going to evolve. You don't have any control over it. You might as well just surrender to the process. Then you can begin to step gently and easily into a state of greater hopefulness, a greater sense of optimism, even if it's just a little bit, a tiny step in the right direction, a sense of self-empowerment. I am free to choose the voice that's going to drive the vehicle of my life, and ultimately a space of love. Now, once you've done the work, and remember, you can't transform what you're unwilling to acknowledge, so you have to buy into whatever depth you went into with your anger, with your fear, with whatever it might be. Own that completely. I have done this to myself, and I am willing to do something else. I'm willing to make that choice for the voice of love. And when you finally know that you're in that space of love, and you kind of know you're there because there's nothing more important to you than allowing yourself to be the presence of love in this world. Jeannie's always up here singing it to us. What the world needs now is love. What the world needs now is love. It's much more than just a lyric, my friends. It is an absolute truth. What the world needs now is love. So, is it possible for me now to find that loving place within my heart, even to that which I most despise out here? You know, Jesus told us, sorry, folks, it's no big deal to love those people that love you. You've got to love the a-holes out there. What? It's true. It's not spiritual mastery to love all the lovely people that are loving you all the time. It's to be able to look at the ones that you despise and be able to realize that what they are delivering to you is a call, a universal call, and it's a call to love. And if you don't offer it, no one else will. And until it's offered, no one will be able to be the light of the world, and nobody will be able to receive the light of the world. But when you step into the loving space, and sometimes it takes a little while to get there, I know. It takes me sometimes days, weeks, in some cases years, but you can get into that space of love. There is nothing more powerful on the face of this earth, my friends, than an individual who is acting out of alignment with love. When you reach that space of love, now and only now are you ready to take action in the world. And that action is going to be so pure, just like your pure being. It's going to be extraordinarily effective, remarkably efficient, because it's aligned with the highest and best within you. Now you can go out and pour a contribution into the collective that's worth pouring. Do you hear me on this? If I'm in any state less than absolute alignment with love, I'm going to be pouring my resentment, pouring my divisiveness, pouring my anger, my rage, pouring all of this into the collective. And that continues to fuel this divisiveness that separates and grows conflict. It's an individual, super individual decision for each and every one of us. You know, fear traps, and that's what we're in right now, is a fear trap. It's a trap that's wanting to engulf us and to contain us in fear and in a sense of hopelessness and helplessness. Fear traps have been going on all your life. You know, it's not like they just started when COVID showed up on the scene. We've been you and I, we're pros at dealing with fear traps. I remember dealing with the fear trap of low self-esteem when I was very young and worried about always what other people were thinking of me, how I was being perceived. And then I fell into a state of victimization, self-imposed victimization, but I didn't know it at the time. I felt like everything was attacking me in terms of social images regarding what's the right family situation, what's the right job situation, what's the right social status, what's the right forms of recognition that I want to acquire here. I became a victim of my own making by my addiction to these external acquisitions, the opinions of other people, big one. What about authority figures? What do they think? Where do I stand? Comparison, contrast, competition, drugs, alcohol, all manner of seeking things I could escape with. I made myself into a victim, but more and more I began to realize as I look back over the course of my life, somehow, by the grace of God, I was able to take those self-imposed states of victimization, blaming circumstances out here, and turn them around in some way that made my trials and tribulations the vehicles through which I was able to liberate my own ability to determine my state of mind and the actions that I produce from that state of mind. That option is always available. You can use any vehicle. You can use circumstances in the world right now, the trials that we are facing, to liberate you into a keener awareness of your ability to determine your state of mind. You're free in any moment to determine your state of mind and then to operate from that place. And more, I want that to be. And maybe I'm just getting old. I don't feel tired, but maybe I'm just getting old and tired. I don't care so much about holding up the props. I really don't. I don't care so much about acquiring the image or the acquisitions of that indicate success or good fortune or any of that. I really more and more just want to be a presence for love. I really want to have greater compassion for those who are suffering. I want to have greater acceptance of myself and other individuals and circumstances in a way that allows me to live in a state of perpetual peace. And I want to have a sense of joy. I want to be able to really see what's going on here. Now, some days I'm really good at that, some days I'm not. A couple weeks ago, and the staff will all attest to this, I'm not proud to say it, but I'm just going to let it out here. I had to go to a bank. The bank shall remain nameless. I had to go to a bank because I had to close a long-standing account that Unity on the Bay is held with this bank. And I have a long history, personal history of casting a lot of judgments on this bank, okay? Because I had a lot of unpleasant experiences in my dealings with them. He just never seemed to want to cooperate with my agenda. So I really tried to clear my consciousness. I actually meditated while I was waiting for my 1 o'clock appointment, which was not able to receive me until close to 2 o'clock. So lots of time in there to look at the internal dynamic that was going on. Finally, I am entertained by a woman who, on first meeting, I believed to be a somewhat satanic force from the depths of hell. Because she just looked at me, you know, like, I don't want you to be here. So, and I'm forgetting this is an angel in disguise. She's just having a bad day. She's calling out for love. So I said, oh, here's my name. Where's your identification? Well, here it is. And she looks up the account, and she looks up at me, and she says, you are not a signer on this account. And so I'm biting my tongue, but I come out to say, sweetheart, I've been signing checks on this account for longer than you've probably been working here. You know, and this is Unity on the Bay, blah, 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 blah. No, you are not a signer on this account, which she might as well have told me, you don't exist. That's the way I took it, you know. And I'm trying to watch myself, but I'm going to that conditioned self, and I'm coming out of all these reactions that I know are not spiritually aligned with the pure being that I am. So finally, we got the deed done. She found out that I did exist, which was helpful. And then I said, there's one more thing I need to do. And she's continually looking at her watch the whole time through this meeting. And one more thing I need to do, I need to close the safety deposit box, too, while I'm here. And she says to me, she looks it up on the screen, and she says, you don't have a safe deposit box. There's been a safe deposit box there for us. You don't have a safe deposit box. And I said, well, could you please take this another step? Because I do, in fact, have a safe deposit box. We do. And she says, calls this number, and she gets a recording. And the recording says, I'm sorry, there's nobody here to answer your phone. It's the bank trying to call the bank, and there's no one there to answer. So I said, I really need to take care of this today. I'm sorry, I need to go to lunch. So if you talk to anybody that's been around me, you'll know that I wasn't in a state of healthy, happy response to any of that. It took me a couple days of moaning about it to finally get to the place where I could realize, all right, you're standing up in front of people every Sunday saying you want to be this representative of divine love and pure being. So you got to start here. We think it's going to take big action to transform the world right now. It doesn't take big action. It takes little actions. It takes little encounters at the bank, little encounters on I-95, sometimes big encounters on I-95. It takes a succession. It takes a practice. It takes a ritual for us to be able to get to that space. And when we finally do, we somehow take on a new sense of vision, my friends, I believe. We start to do something that I've talked to you about many times. We start to get little glimmers, you see, of what possibly could be breaking through that which seems to be breaking down. Anybody see anything breaking down in the world over the last year? Remember this, my friends, you will always, always, always see that which you are looking for. You'll always see what you're looking for. If you're looking for a breakdown, consciously or unconsciously, I guarantee you over the next few months, you're going to see more and more and more and more breakdowns, because that's your point of focus, and it's going to grow and grow and grow until you will begin to break down. It's just the way the universe operates. You get more always of what you are putting your focus on. If you can instead look for even the tiniest little slivers of light out there of something that might be breaking through this compelling, in-our-face breakdown that's taking place, you can shift it not only for yourself, but you'll start pouring into your contribution of the collective consciousness something that can really make a positive difference. What is emerging? And I believe with all my heart something beautiful is emerging here. Some days more than others. I get it. Wednesday I was having a lot of difficulty believing this, but there's a wonderful book written by a lady who was a friend of mine, and she was also a great influence and spiritual teacher in the world. I've mentioned her to you before, Barbara Marx Hubbard. She recently made her transition not too long ago, but she wrote a book called Revelation, and it was a metaphysical interpretation of the entire book of Revelation. She believed she had accessed her own pure being as a means of better understanding some of the passages that we find in the book of Revelation in the Bible. And this is what she said, just to invite you to take these words in, my friends, because these words are like gold right now. We need the awareness that lies behind these words. The meaning of your new crisis. Anybody see a new crisis emerging right now? The meaning of your new crisis is to activate your new capacities. The meaning of your new crisis is to activate your new capacities. Remember, we're evolving here. That worm had no idea what the hell was going on when it was building that shell around itself that would ultimately allow it to emerge into something it could never have imagined it could be, flying free through the skies. The same potential, the same capacity lies for all of us. Barber goes on to say, and hear these words, my friends, if you need hope this morning, I believe this is hope in the form of the English language. O humanity, what your eyes are about to behold will fill your breaking hearts with joy. Hear that again. O humanity, what your eyes are about to behold will fill your breaking hearts with joy. The call, my friends, is being sounded. It's universal. And I ask you sitting in this room and those of you sitting at home watching this broadcast, who will answer, love or fear? Every Sunday, we sing this song, but I wonder if we really get what we're singing about. Let there be peace on earth. And let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth. The peace that was meant to be. With God as creator. Family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment, to live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Positive Spiritual Living Podcast, brought to you by Unity on the Bay, a spiritual community located in Miami, Florida. Unity on the Bay is supported by the generosity of its community. If you'd like to make a donation or learn more about Unity on the Bay, please visit unityonthebay.org. You can also follow Unity on the Bay on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for even more positive spiritual inspiration. Until next time, thanks for listening and many blessings. Namaste.